Nyla Adebayo had lived most of her life feeling like an apology. In her family's small but proud household, she was the extra mouth, the extra body, the extra problem no one had asked for. Her older sister Mira was the shining one, the daughter who always made their mother smile in front of visitors. Their Uncle Tade often said Mira carried the future of the family on her head. But Nyla, quiet and thoughtful, was treated like a shadow that refused to disappear. No matter how much she helped, no matter how little she asked for, someone always found a way to remind her that she was lucky to be tolerated. If this story touches your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Stories like Nyla's are for everyone who has ever been underestimated, unloved, or treated like they did not matter. Sometimes the people who break your heart are the same people who later come searching for your light. Nyla never forgot the day her mother looked her in the eye and said, "You have always been too soft for this world. That is why life keeps stepping on you." She had only been 17. Her father had died 2 years earlier, and since then the house had become colder even in the hottest months. Her Aunt Simi came often, not to comfort them, but to count what was left. She counted food, furniture, bills, and people. Nyla always felt like she was part of the things being measured and found useless. Still, Nyla endured. She woke before sunrise to sweep the compound, boil water, wash clothes, and prepare breakfast before leaving for school. She returned to insults dressed as advice. "Learn from Mira," her mother would say. "Look at how she speaks. Look at how she dresses. Men will marry her. Doors will open for her. But you? You always look like you are carrying rain in your chest." The one place where Nyla felt alive was the library. It was old, quiet, and smelled of paper and dust, but it made room for her in a way her own home never did. She loved reading stories of women who built their own lives from pain. She copied quotes into a small notebook and told herself that one day she would become someone her younger self would be proud of. That was where she met Elias Karim. He was not rich in appearance, but he had the kind of presence that made the room listen when he spoke. He volunteered at the library on weekends, helping students fill out scholarship forms and edit essays. The first time he saw Nyla sitting alone by the window, he noticed that she was reading 2 books at once and writing in the margins of her notebook with fierce concentration. "You read like someone trying to save her own life," he said with a small smile. Nyla looked up, embarrassed. "Maybe I am." He did not laugh. Instead, he pulled out the chair across from her and sat down gently. "Then I hope the books are helping." That was the beginning. Elias was patient in the way few people were. He never forced conversation, never mocked her silence, never asked cruel questions hidden inside concern. Over weeks, he learned that Nyla loved literature, that she wanted to study design and communication, and that she dreamed of building something beautiful from nothing. Nyla learned that Elias worked part-time, took care of his younger brother, and believed that kindness was a kind of strength. When he said, "You deserve a life bigger than the one they keep describing to you," Nyla almost cried. No one had ever spoken to her as if her future belonged to her. Their friendship deepened slowly, then all at once. He saved her a seat in the library. She brought him snacks when she knew he had skipped lunch. He read her essays and said things like, "This line here, this is brilliant." She laughed more around him than she did anywhere else. For the first time in years, she began to feel visible. At home, however, nothing changed. Mira got new clothes while Nyla wore altered old ones. Mira was introduced proudly at weddings and church programs. Nyla was sent to the kitchen to serve food. When relatives visited, her Aunt Simi would ask in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "So Nyla, what exactly is your plan? Or are you just waiting for pity to become a profession?" Nyla would force a smile and answer softly, "I'm working on my future." Her Uncle Tade once laughed so hard, he nearly spilled his drink. "Future? With what money? With what connection? My dear, dream within your size." But Nyla kept going. Elias helped her apply for a city fellowship for young creatives. They spent evenings in the library, drafting her personal statement. He believed in her even when she stumbled over her own hope. One evening, after the rain had kept everyone indoors, Elias walked her to the gate of her house. The street lights were dim, and the road glistened with water. "Nyla," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him, her heart suddenly loud. "I think about you too much for this to still be friendship." She froze, breath caught in her throat. He smiled nervously. "That sounded better in my head." For the first time in a long while, Nyla laughed from somewhere deep inside. You always say things like a man who has been writing speeches in secret. I have, he said. None of them prepared me for you. The laughter faded into silence, soft and trembling. I care about you too, she whispered. Elias stepped closer, but carefully, giving her room to breathe. Then let me do this right. No pressure. No games. I want to stand with you while you build the life you deserve. Nyla had heard many things in her life: criticism, comparison, blame, and disappointment, but never a promise so gentle. She nodded, and that night, under a sky still wet from rain, their love began. For a while, love felt like shelter. Elias became the one person Nyla could lean on without fear. He celebrated every small victory. When she received an interview invitation for the fellowship, he brought cheap cupcakes and said, "One day I'll buy you a whole bakery." When she doubted herself, he said, "You are not who they say you are. One day they'll see it, and by then you won't need them to." But love did not make her home softer. In fact, it made her family harsher. Mira noticed that Nyla was happier and disliked it immediately. "Who is he?" Mira asked one afternoon, arms folded. "His name is Elias." Mira smirked. "And what does he have?" Because love without money is stress wearing perfume. Nyla tried to ignore her, but Aunt Simi joined in. These girls with empty pockets always find boys with emptier pockets. Then they call it destiny. When their mother found out, she was furious. "You have no right to bring romance into this house when you have achieved nothing." Nyla stared at her. "So I am not allowed to be loved until I become useful?" Her mother's face hardened. "Do not twist my words." But Nyla understood the truth. In that house, affection was a reward for performance. Since she had never been their favorite investment, she had never been worth tenderness. Weeks later, Nyla attended the fellowship interview wearing a simple dress Elias had paid to alter for her. He waited outside the building for 3 hours just to walk her home afterward. "How did it go?" he asked. "I think I did well," she said, though fear shook her voice. "You did more than well," he replied. "You walked into a room that was never built for girls like you and made them listen." She smiled through sudden tears. "Why do you always know what to say?" "Because I see you," he said. That night, Nyla returned home to find Mira crying dramatically in the sitting room. Their mother and aunt were gathered around her. Apparently Myra's fiancé, Jalen Cole, had delayed their engagement plans because his business was failing. Instead of comforting Mira quietly, the whole family turned the moment into a lesson. "This is why a woman must secure her future," Aunt Simi declared. Then she looked straight at Nyla. "And some people here are wasting time chasing fantasy." Nyla said nothing. She had grown tired of defending herself in rooms that loved her humiliation more than her honesty. 2 days later, the fellowship email arrived. She had been accepted. Nyla stared at the screen until the words blurred. Her hands shook. She called Elias first. "You got in," he shouted so loudly she had to move the phone away from her ear. "I got in," she whispered. "I told you," he said, laughing. "I told you the world would open." When she told her family, their reaction was not joy but suspicion. "What exactly is this fellowship?" Uncle Tate asked. "How much does it pay?" Aunt Simi added immediately. Myra's face tightened with jealousy. Their mother only said, "Do not embarrass us." Still, Nyla left for the city program a week later. Elias hugged her at the bus park and pressed a folded note into her hand. "Read it when you start to doubt yourself." She read it before the bus had even moved. "You are not leaving home. You are leaving pain. There is a difference. Build bravely. I love you." Nyla pressed the paper to her chest and cried silently against the window. For the first time in her life, she was heading towards something that belonged to her. She did not know then that success would one day bring her family back to her door. And she certainly did not know that love, the one good thing she had found in the middle of rejection, would soon be tested in the cruelest way. The city changed Nyla in ways even she did not fully understand at first. She walked faster. She spoke with more confidence. She learned how to enter rooms without apologizing for taking up space. The fellowship was demanding, but it fed parts of her that had been starving for years. She studied branding, digital storytelling, and visual strategy. For the first time, teachers and mentors responded to her ideas with interest instead of pity. Each time someone said, "That's smart," or "You have real vision," a small broken part inside her stitched itself back together. And yet, through all the growth, she missed Elias constantly. At the start, they spoke every night. He asked about her classes, her projects, the cafe she liked near the design studio. She asked about his brother, his part-time work, and whether he was sleeping enough. He still said things that made her smile in public like a fool. Eat properly, he would say. I need my future famous woman alive. Or, one day, when you own a building, don't make me queue too long to see you. Nyla would laugh and reply, I'll let you in through the front door. But time can be cruel even to sincere love. Elias took on more shifts. Nyla's deadlines became tighter. Calls moved from every night to every other night, then to rushed voice notes and missed calls followed by apologies. Their love was real, but reality kept interrupting it. One weekend, Nyla returned home for Myra's introduction ceremony. She did not want to go, but her mother insisted. Whether they celebrate you or not, you will not become proud and start ignoring family. The moment Nyla entered the house, she understood why she had been summoned. Her family had heard from someone that her fellowship came with connections, mentorship, and possible investors for small businesses. Suddenly her existence had value. Aunt Simi embraced her too tightly. Nyla, our star girl. You did not even tell us you were doing so well. Uncle Tade grinned. I always knew you had sense. Nyla stared at them with polite disbelief. Her mother brought her special food. Mira asked about city life with fake sweetness in her voice. It was all so sudden, so shameless, that Nyla felt tired instead of flattered. Later that evening, Mira pulled her aside. Since you know people now, maybe you can help Jalen. His business is still struggling. Nyla blinked. You've mocked me for months. Mira shrugged. Why are you acting like a child? Family is family. Those words stayed in Nyla's mind long after she returned to the city. When she told Elias about it over the phone, he grew quiet. They didn't believe in you, he said. Now they smell possibility. I know. Please be careful, Nyla. People who only love you when you become useful are dangerous. She leaned back on her bed and closed her eyes. Sometimes I think I still want their love. Even after everything. That's because you are a good person, he said softly. Not because they deserve it. His words warmed her, but there was distance in them too, a fatigue she could not ignore. She asked, Are you okay? Yes, he said too quickly. Just tired. It was the first lie she caught and pretended not to notice. Months passed. Nyla completed the fellowship at the top of her class and was offered an internship that quickly turned into paid contract work. She began building a strong reputation for creating brand campaigns for small businesses. Clients liked her because she listened deeply and translated feeling into design. She moved into a small apartment with peeling paint and proud dreams. She sent money home once, then regretted it when her mother responded with a message that simply read, You should do more when you can. Around that time, Elias changed. He still loved her, she knew that, but something inside him had become heavy. Their calls were shorter. His laughter sounded forced. When she asked what was wrong, he always found a reason to delay the answer. One evening she took a bus home without telling him, carrying his favorite meat pie and a notebook she had bought because it looked like the kind he loved. She found him sitting outside his building with his elbows on his knees, staring at the road like a man waiting for bad news he could already feel. He looked up in surprise. Nyla, she smiled gently. I came to see you. He stood, but there was no spark in the movement. He hugged her, and she felt how tired his body was. What's wrong? She asked when they sat down. Nothing. Elias. He rubbed his face and finally exhaled. My brother's school fees. Rent. Work. My mother's hospital debt from before she died is still hanging over me. Everything is pressing at once. Why didn't you tell me? He looked away. Because you are finally rising. I didn't want my problems to become chains on your ankles. Nyla's eyes filled. Do you really think I would see you that way? No, he said. I think I know exactly how much you would sacrifice. That is what scares me. She held his hand. We are supposed to carry things together. He looked at her then, long and wounded. I wanted to be the man who gave you peace. Not another struggle to manage. The words broke her heart because they were so full of love and shame at the same time. She moved closer. You are not a burden to me. Don't ever say that. He laughed bitterly. Funny. That's the one thing both of us have spent our lives trying not to become. For a while, they held each other in silence. It felt like two people trying to protect a small fire from a strong wind. Nyla began helping him quietly where she could. She paid one school fee installment for his brother. She connected him with a friend who knew about freelance bookkeeping work. She skipped some of her own comforts without telling him. But help can wound pride even when it comes from love. Elias became more distant, not less. Then came Jalen. Myra's fiancé had heard that Nyla's client network was growing. He began calling often, asking for introductions, proposals, ideas. At first, Nyla stayed formal. But he was persistent, polished, and deeply strategic. He praised her talent in ways that felt suspiciously calculated. "You think far," he told her during one business lunch. "No wonder your future is bright." Nyla kept her voice flat. "This is a work conversation." He smiled. "Of course." Unfortunately, Elias saw them together before she had a chance to explain. He had come to surprise her after finally receiving payment for a big project. Instead, from across the restaurant glass, he saw Nyla seated opposite a well-dressed man, leaning over documents and speaking with the kind of focused attention intimacy can resemble from far away. He did not enter. He left. When Nyla called that night, he did not answer. He ignored her messages for 2 days. By the time he agreed to see her, pain had already shaped itself into anger. "It was a business meeting," she said the moment they sat down. "With Myra's fiancé?" he asked coldly. "Yes. You hate that man." "I do not like him." "That is different." He laughed once, without humor. "So now you work with people who mocked you because opportunity is bigger than pride?" Nyla stiffened. "Do not do that." "Do what?" "Talk to me like I sold something sacred." He stood up and walked a few steps away, then turned back. "I saw you smiling." "Because I was being professional. Because maybe he belongs in your new world better than I do." The moment the words left his mouth, both of them froze. Nyla's face changed first, not into anger, but deep hurt. "So that is what this is." Elias looked away. "All this distance. All this silence. You think I am outgrowing you." "I think," he said carefully, "that success changes people." Nyla stood too, her voice shaking. "No. Fear changes people. Shame changes people. And right now, you are letting both destroy us." He swallowed hard but said nothing. She stepped closer. "I loved you when I had nothing but pain. I love you now when things are finally changing. Why are you making me pay for becoming what you always said I could be?" His eyes glistened, but pride kept him still. That was the beginning of the fracture. They did not break up that day, but something cracked. Calls became careful. Words became chosen instead of flowing naturally. Love was still present, but it now had to move around wounded ego, exhaustion, jealousy, and fear. Then disaster struck Nyla's family. Jalen's business collapsed completely after a legal issue involving mismanaged funds. Myra's planned marriage fell apart in a storm of public embarrassment. Uncle Tade lost money in a reckless deal. Their mother's shop fell deep into debt. One by one, the same people who had treated Nyla like a burden began calling her with trembling voices. "Nyla, can you help us? Nyla, you know important people now. Nyla, you are the hope of this family." The words should have felt victorious. Instead, they felt tragic. And when Elias heard how often her family was leaning on her, he said quietly, "They will drain you if you let them." Nyla rubbed her forehead. "What do I do? Turn my back and become like them?" "No," he said. "But don't destroy yourself trying to save people who only remember you when they are drowning." She nodded, but inside she was splitting in two, one part still aching to be chosen, the other finally learning that being needed was not the same as being loved. Then, just when she needed Elias most, he made the choice that shattered her. He ended things. Not because he stopped loving her. Because he believed he loved her too much to keep standing in the way of what he thought she was becoming. Nyla did not cry immediately when Elias ended the relationship. She sat very still, as if her body had become too shocked to respond. They were in the same library where they had first met, only now everything felt painfully different. The old shelves, the soft scrape of chairs, the weak afternoon light, all of it seemed to witness the undoing of something precious. Elias could barely look at her. "I can't keep doing this," he said, voice low and rough. "Every time I look at you, I see how far you are going. And every time I look at myself, I see what I still cannot provide." Nyla stared at him. "So you're punishing me because life has been hard on you?" His face twisted. "It's not that simple." "Then explain it simply." He finally met her eyes, and there was so much love there it made the pain worse. "I love you enough not to chain you to my unfinished battles." Her lips trembled. "You don't get to decide what I can carry." "I'm already deciding too late," he said. "I should have stepped back before I started resenting your growth." That sentence broke something in her for real. "Resenting," she repeated softly. He closed his eyes. "Not you. Myself around you. The man I become when I feel small beside your light." Tears rushed to her eyes then. "I never asked you to shrink." "I know. You taught me to believe in myself." "I know. You told me I deserved a bigger life. I know. Then why? She whispered. Does it feel like you are abandoning me for becoming the woman you prayed for? Elias had no answer that could heal what he was doing. Some heartbreaks do not come from lack of love. They come from wounds love cannot heal fast enough. Nyla left the library that day with her head high and her heart in pieces. She did not beg. She did not scream. But when she reached her apartment, she sat on the floor and cried until the sun disappeared. The note he had once given her, "You are not leaving home. You are leaving pain," was still tucked inside her drawer. She held it against her chest like something sacred and cruel. For weeks afterward, she lived like someone moving through water. She worked. She smiled at clients. She delivered campaigns that impressed investors. She even launched her own creative agency with a small team of 2. On paper, her life was rising beautifully. Inside, she felt as though love had been taken from her just when she had finally believed she was worthy of keeping it. That was when her family came fully undone. Uncle Tade called first, but not with his usual pride. His voice had aged. "Nyla, I need to see you." She met him in a cafe downtown. He looked smaller somehow. "The deal went bad," he admitted. "I borrowed against property I should not have touched." Nyla folded her arms. And now creditors are pressing. I thought I could recover, but I can't." She watched him carefully. This was the same man who once laughed at her dreams. "Why are you telling me?" He looked ashamed. "Because you are the only one in this family who has built something real." The words were heavy. Not praise. Not apology exactly. But truth. Then Aunt Simi called about her son's failed import business. Their mother called about her shop rent and illness. Mira called last, crying in a way Nyla had never heard before. "Jalen left," Mira said. "Everything is ruined." Nyla closed her eyes. "I'm sorry." "No," Mira whispered. "You don't understand. He left debts in my name too." For a long time, Nyla said nothing. All the years of cruelty, comparison, and humiliation stood between them on the line like witnesses. Finally she asked, "Why are you calling me, Mira?" Her sister began to sob. "Because I have no one else." That sentence stayed with Nyla all night. Not because it softened her immediately, but because it revealed something ugly and sad. The family who once made her feel disposable had now run out of places to turn. Her success, the very thing they had belittled, had become their emergency exit. Over the next month, Nyla made decisions with a calm her old self would not have recognized. She refused to hand out money blindly. Instead, she hired a financial advisor to review the family's debts. She negotiated settlements, set boundaries, and helped only where help would not become waste. She moved her mother into better medical care, but told her clearly, "I am helping because I choose peace, not because you earned this through kindness." Her mother lowered her eyes. "I was hard on you." Nyla's expression did not change. "You were cruel." The older woman's mouth trembled. "I thought life would crush softness out of you." "It almost did," Nyla replied. "But not because of life alone." For the first time, her mother cried in front of her without defensiveness. Myra's apology came slower. Pride still fought inside her, but desperation was stronger now. She came to Nyla's office in a plain dress, without makeup, without performance. "This place is beautiful," she said quietly. Nyla remained behind her desk. "Why are you here?" Mira nodded as if she deserved the coldness. "To say I was wrong. I hated how people ignored me when you started doing well. I hated that you became everything they never expected. And so you punished me for it." "Yes." Nyla looked at her sister for a long time. "Do you know what hurt most? Not the insults. It was watching you enjoy them." Mira broke then. "I know." Nyla did help her eventually, but not by rescuing her into comfort. She gave Mira a structured job in a partner company, arranged counseling support, and paid part of the legal fees tied to the debt mess. It was mercy with boundaries. Nothing like the blind sacrifice her family had always assumed they could demand from her. And yet, through every major decision, through every victory, there was one absence Nyla could never quiet. Elias. She would see things he would have loved. A street musician near the bridge, a second-hand bookstore, a terrible coffee he would have mocked, and feel grief sweep through her like weather. She had grown stronger without him, yes. But strength and healing are not always the same thing. Then one evening, nearly a year after their breakup, she saw him again. It happened at a youth mentorship event where Nyla had been invited to speak. After her talk, as people clustered around asking questions, she looked past the crowd and saw him standing near the back. Elias looked older, steadier, and thinner. But his eyes were the same. For 1 second the room disappeared. When the event ended, he waited outside instead of approaching her in front of everyone. Nyla walked toward him slowly, heart pounding. "Hi," he said. "Hi." He gave a small, sad smile. "You were incredible in there." She folded her arms, not out of anger, but self-protection. "What are you doing here?" "I work with one of the organizers now. Community education programs." She nodded. "That sounds like you." He laughed softly. "I hope that is a good thing." There was silence, then honesty. "I heard what you did for your family," he said. "The boundaries. The structure. The help without losing yourself." Nyla looked away. "It was messy. It was wise." She swallowed. "Why did you come talk to me?" His answer came without delay. "Because not a week has passed without me regretting what I did." Her breath caught. "I told myself leaving was love," he continued. "But some of it was cowardice. Some of it was pride dressed as sacrifice." Nyla's eyes filled, but she stood still. "I've done the work I should have done before," he said. "Therapy. Debt plans. Hard conversations with myself. I'm not here to ask for what I have not earned. I just needed you to know that losing you was the clearest mirror I have ever faced." Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. "Do you know what it cost me to survive that?" His face broke. "I know I have no right to ask forgiveness easily." "No," she said. "You don't." They stood in the evening light with years of love and pain between them. Then Nyla asked the question she had carried like a stone. "Did you ever stop loving me?" Elias shook his head immediately. "Never." That answer did not fix everything. But it opened a door. Their way back was not dramatic. It was slow, honest, and full of difficult conversations. They did not pretend the heartbreak had been romantic. They named it for what it was: fear, shame, timing, pride, and love that had not yet learned how to survive success. But because they were finally truthful, trust began to return. Months later, Elias visited Nyla's office after hours carrying 2 meat pies and an old notebook. She laughed when she saw them. "You really think nostalgia is a strategy?" "It is part of one," he said. They sat by the window as city lights blinked outside. He handed her the notebook. Inside, on the first page, he had written, "This time, let love be strong enough for both pain and growth." Nyla read it twice before looking up. "You wrote speeches again." "I never stopped." She smiled, and this time the smile reached the deepest wounded places in her. When he asked her to try again, he did not promise perfection. He promised presence. He promised honesty before silence. He promised that if fear came, he would speak it instead of letting it poison love in secret. Nyla took a long breath and said yes. Not because the past had vanished, but because both of them had finally become people who could hold love without dropping themselves. Years later, when people spoke of Nyla Adebayo, they spoke of her success, her agency, the jobs she created, the young women she mentored, and the quiet dignity with which she carried power. Her family, once ashamed of her softness, leaned on the very strength that softness had become. But those who knew the full story understood something deeper. Her success was never just money or influence. It was the miracle of surviving rejection without becoming cruel. It was the courage to help without forgetting the truth. It was the choice to love again after heartbreak. And it was the beautiful irony of life that the girl once treated like a burden became the only hope of the people who had failed her most. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Sometimes the heart breaks before it becomes strong enough to hold the life meant for it. And sometimes the person they dismissed becomes the very light they cannot live without.